I'm Glenn McGinnis, and this is Outburst. On the program, has the healthcare crunch in Canada made you more likely to disregard some minor healthcare issues?
Not at all. I feel you may as well be proactive.
Sometimes I'll just say, oh, I'll just take a Tylenol.
The nurses were so overworked.
And I've got a few issues and I just ignore it.
But first, the federal Liberal government's carbon tax woes continue as several premiers have banded together to urge the Prime Minister to make carbon tax exemptions equal for all provinces and on all forms of home heating. Back on October 26th, the Prime Minister announced a 3-year exemption on home heating oil in Atlantic Canada, where a higher percentage of consumers still use it. But critics say this exemption should apply to all Canadians and on all methods of home heating. So, what do you think? Our question.
Do you think there should be a carbon tax exemption on all home heating?
100% there should be. Why? Because everybody heats their homes different ways. So, it's not fair for one group to get it, say, and the ones that don't have, say, oil heat, or, are paying electric, they're going to be paying carbon tax on something, on their power bill or whatever, right? So, yeah, I feel if you're going to give a break, it should be for all heating.
No. Oil is more expensive and oil is more polluting. And it's really, it's just a delay in implementing the carbon tax. It's not really an exemption. It's a chance for us to all to get off oil in Atlantic Canada.
No.
And why is that?
Well, because I think it's the oil that is the biggest problem, and that's where they need to concentrate. So people who heat with oil should have some sort of help.
On home heating? Yes, at certain income levels though. For below certain income should have exemptions on their home carbon tax.
Sure. It's really hard to live these days. People are finding it really tough, so any cuts that we can get will be most welcome.
Yes. What's our alternative? I just don't think that actually incentivizes anybody to lower their carbon footprint. I think if anything, Canadians are in a pinch right now. Everybody's pushed to the absolute limit, and anything that we're taking, we should be looking at what we can give back to them as well. So I think we should look at all different alternatives, get people off of oil heating onto electric, but I don't know if taxing everybody across the board would be the way to do it. So I think maybe, tax exemption on that.
Yes.
Why?
Because it's costly, but the cost of living now is something to ease, especially for seniors.
We're taxed to death as it is. And here in Atlantic Canada, they were talking about with the carbon tax on the home heating oil. I mean, hey, if you're going to give us a break there, it's got to go to the whole country. I know they're on gas up there, but, it's. I think we're taxed to death as it is.
Yes.
Why?
Because it's essential. You have to heat your house. And I feel you're being penalized with the tax, especially in Newfoundland, the Maritimes. I don't have a choice. I have to use oil.
Folks are really struggling to survive. The cost of food and home heating is off the charts, and everything else seems to be climbing. I really don't understand why it seems, but it appears to be that way. It's almost a weekly increase in prices in goods and services, and I mean, I understand the carbon tax, I understand our net zero goal, but I don't think it would be critical if people were to have a little bit of a reprieve right now.
To be honest, I wouldn't say so, unless it is for people that need it, like in people that are struggling with heating, especially because winter is coming. If there are people that feel that it is too much for them to pay that tax, for sure they should have an exemption on that. But for the average person, I would say we should still have to pay that tax.
I find that one hard to answer because they give carbon breaks for large companies, and they use a lot of carbon at the moment. You know what I mean? I think carbon tax, as long as maybe there's an issue with the government not offsetting the carbon as much as they should be. But other than that, home heating is important and it's needed. And if you're charged too much, it's already expensive. Some people aren't having heat in their house because they can't afford it. So to me, I think that, we lessen the load on the people who need it and heavy on the load of people who are profiting off the carbon.
I think it's fair for all people that essential services like home heating shouldn't be carbon taxed, but anything else is fair game.
Even though we are not in full-blown election mode as of yet, Canada's federal party leaders have been making themselves quite visible as of late, pushing the priorities on their agenda to be front and center. Whether it be pharmacare, axing the carbon tax, or affordable housing, where do you think their priorities should lie in these challenging times? Our question.
What is the issue you want the federal party leaders to focus on?
Groceries. Getting that price down, because it has been, I moved from Ontario to here 5 years ago, a little over, and I mean, even going home to visit, the price of groceries in Ontario is still expensive, but it's much less than here. Even if you look at gas, what we pay for filling up the car every day is 20-30 cents more than my family in Ontario, and they'll complain about, oh man, it's $1.20 here, and I'm like, yeah, it's $1.80 here, man. I don't know, you don't have any sympathy from me.
More doctors, more nurses for health care, for number one. That'll do me. Keep us all going.
Affordability. I think the housing crisis has gone to the point that it's crunching every other sector, and that's what's really going to crush the economy. Is too much of people's daily income is being taken up by housing costs and just trying to get day-to-day living costs.
Oh, the economy's a big one. There's no doubt about that. I don't. There's so many. So it's hard to pinpoint one. Certainly, the economy is a challenge for most people. Individuals like fixed seniors, it's a challenge, becoming more of a challenge all the time. I'm recently retired. I'm fortunate because I do have a pension, but I look at other people who are not as in the same boat as I am. So there's no doubt everything has gotten more expensive. Groceries being one, and of course we live on an island, which makes everything a bit more expensive. So
climate change, first and foremost. Because it's beyond kicking the can down the road. It's getting more serious all the time. We're passing milestones in climate destruction that we might not see the other side of. We may not come back from.
Housing. They have a policy of increasing the population, but they don't seem to be putting anything into place to provide for newcomers or young people to be able to buy. There's nothing to buy, and if there is something to buy, it's too expensive, and the interest rates are too high.
Oh, I think in general we need housing. I think that's the big thing. I think people need places to stay. I think less people would need help in the hospital if they had a home to stay in. I think that could fix a lot of things.
The issue, I think, is just getting in touch with Canadians. There's a lot of people that, when you walk around, have different opinions, and a lot of times they feel like they're not represented. If the federal government could take a moment, sit down with people, and listen to them, a lot of people would raise what is important to them, because everybody has their own issue, and they don't feel listened to.
Yeah, housing, homelessness, I think.
Why that one?
I just think it's just such a basic human necessity, and we can't really move forward with other larger scale issues when people don't have the basic necessities.
Housing.
And why housing?
Obviously, there's a shortage across Canada. It's driving up prices, and people can't afford to get decent living accommodations.
The biggest of all of them, I would say probably the housing crisis. I think that's probably the biggest issue that Canada is facing right now. Not just the homeless population, but also rising real estate markets and also rent prices. I feel like it's just getting unaffordable for anyone to live in Canada right now.
If there was a little bit more regulation on how much mortgage rates could be increased by, that's going to affect how much rent can be increased by, which also should be implemented. And as well with grocery stores having regulations on how much more they can charge for food than they did before, because those are really, I mean, it's really getting to a situation in Canada where people don't have spending money beyond necessities, you know. Rent is, you know, 2/3 of your monthly wage, and then there's bills, and then, you know, and then food is just ridiculously expensive. And I mean, I'm having a hard time, and I don't have any kids or pets, and some people have kids and pets, and so, you know, I really worry about people in those situations and how they're getting by, especially.
The high rent, yeah, this is really killing everybody. Yeah, even if you make like 200,000 a year, still rent is not affordable anymore in this town.
Healthcare is the biggest thing, I think, because most of our population is getting to that older age, and that's going to cause a lot of blockage in a lot of nursing homes or healthcare issues and stuff. The biggest issue is having doctors, stuff like that, and especially out here, I think. I have friends out here and they can't still get a doctor and they're waiting, so.
I'd want the federal party leaders to focus on bringing people together more, not polarizing people as much, and helping people out.
The rising cost of living. You know, everybody, that affects everyone. And, you know, consider most people now, like I have a good job, but some people call it the working poor. And that's what Canada has turned into the last few years, you know. They're coming after every penny you have and don't have.
The major issue is climate change. Climate change. We have to take climate change seriously. We can't just skirt around it and bury our heads in the sand. This is going to be a major issue for the whole world, including us. Yes, climate change. Underlined.
All levels of government talk about building affordable housing. Affordable for who? Not for the people who desperately need it. And that's where we have to concentrate, getting people off the street and into proper housing.
How many time zones are in Canada? 4, 6, or 9?
4.
I'd say 6.
I'll say 9.
I would say 4.
I would say 4.
4?
9. 6.
Absolutely correct. No need to count.
Good.
You did well.
Good.
There are 6 time zones in Canada. From west to east, these time zones are Pacific, Mountain, Central, Eastern, Atlantic, and Newfoundland. Most areas of the country's provinces and territories operate on standard time from the first Sunday in November to the second Sunday in March, and daylight saving time the rest of the year.
The Ontario government is looking to put forward legislation which would require employers to include expected salary range on job postings. Its aim is to provide potential employees with the tools to make more informed decisions when looking for a job. Similar legislation was recently passed in Prince Edward Island and in British Columbia, and many people feel this could be a win-win for both job seekers and employers alike, and it could also lessen the gender wage gap in Canada. So, what do you think about this? Our question.
Should it be mandatory for employers to disclose wages or a salary range for job postings?
Yes. Because if you want employees that are going to be fully committed to the job, you should give them all the information they need to make an informed decision.
I think that it should be. I shop on Indeed all the time for jobs. I'm always looking, and the ones that I ignore are the ones that don't give me enough information on that kind of thing, and that's too bad because some of those jobs are needed, you know what I mean? So, yes.
Yes.
And why?
It's transparency for all, and it should help eliminate any disparities between whether it's males, females, or others.
Yes.
And why?
So people know what they're getting themselves into. People know if they're going to be able to afford to live based on the job that they're working.
Yes, I would totally agree with that. A lot of times when you're looking for jobs, there's this whole negotiation things that personally I don't like, and I feel it's become a culture where nobody talks about it when it is something that it is the reason why people go to work, for the money. So it should be mandated that at least you have a range.
I think it would make more sense to post a salary range, depending on what your ability is, because otherwise you're going to get 1,000 applications for a job that 1 or 2 people are qualified for.
Of course, I believe so. Yeah, instead of having 50 applicants, they don't know what they are applying for. You get 5. And they are interested in the same wage and the salary.
In Ontario, I see it on some jobs for online and for things. For other ones, they don't. But I know they're posting up signs because they're having a hard time getting people. So if you pay a competitive wage, you're going to get people to apply.
Yes, I 100% agree on that. Especially because I'm looking for an internship for next year. So some jobs don't really say how much they're going to pay you, so you just have to guess. And it will be a lot better if you have a perfect understanding of what you're going into, so you can make choices in not just internships but all jobs in general, because so that you can prepare yourself for what may happen in the future. Yeah. So I agree. Yes.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's much argument for the other side. If employers shouldn't have the ability to kind of hide things from their employees, and wage is the biggest deciding factor for people who are looking for jobs. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think so. It helps students or people decide if the job is worthwhile for them to apply to, and applying to jobs takes a lot of time and effort.
Well, I think it's important if you're applying for a job to know what approximately you might be getting. And interesting, because our granddaughter has just gone through a process of applying for a job, and that was one of the first things they told her, was what the salary would be. And I think it's very important.
Absolutely, yeah. And especially if they can give a specific wage, because there's a lot of, these huge ranges of wages that are being posted. And so there's things that are being advertised for, $17, $18 an hour, and then when they say, well, you're hired, but now it's $14 an hour. And so it's just kind of that surprise thing that I think is really difficult for people, and it does waste a lot of people's time too, especially if they're looking for a higher paying job than the one they already have. So I do definitely think it's kind of useless to post any kind of a job without any form of wage or anything like that. Yeah.
I think so. Because I think for certain people it will be part of to be able to determine if it's a job that you're interested in. Why waste the employer's time to go through the process if the wage is not what you consider what it should be?
No, I don't believe so. I'm one of those people who has his salary posted, so I don't particularly agree with that. In fact, I don't agree with it at all, and I'm not quite sure why there's a need to do that. I don't care to see what other people's salaries are. I'm not sure people should have the right to see what I earn.
Sure. People want to know what they're going to, if it's worth pursuing. If they saw how much they're going to be making, maybe it wouldn't, if it's not what they're looking for, maybe they wouldn't even pursue it.
For myself, I've been working retail since I was 16, and I'm 30 now, so old enough. It's I have lots of experience in it. So if I went into a job and they said, oh, your range is from 15 to 20, I'll be pushing more towards that 20 side because I have 16 years of retail experience at this point.
Yes, I think it would increase job fairness and decrease discrimination based on more people who are more marginalized. It would increase bargaining power of the individual and take away some of the power from the corporations, which I think is important.
No. Government employees above a certain level, yes, because there's accountability issues. But for your average employee, no, you shouldn't have to post them unless it's part of the job, ad at the beginning of the posting.
We all know about those lengthy wait times we could be subjected to when visiting a hospital emergency room or outpatients. Depending on your medical situation, your wait time could be quite lengthy, as others may have a higher priority over you. With this type of situation seemingly becoming the norm here in Canada, there may be some people who will forego seeing a doctor or a nurse for a non-emergency situation just to avoid being stuck in a waiting room for 12 hours or even more in some cases. So, are you one of those people that will overlook a minor medical situation just to avoid the long wait? Our question. Has the healthcare crunch in Canada made you more likely to disregard some minor health issues?
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
100%.
Tell me about it.
Just even when it's something like important, I called my doctor. I said it was important, it was urgent. She's like, sorry, still can't get you in until like a month and a half later. So like it's just, yeah, it can definitely, some people, I could imagine if it wasn't too,
their
or if
lives
you don't
would depend on
yeah,
it.
or if you don't think it's too important, just kind of let it go until eventually it's like
Too late.
too late, which I could imagine would happen and does happen a lot.
Actually, no, not at all. I feel you may as well be proactive.
Oh, absolutely. If you have an issue and you think long and hard before you go to emergency. It's 12 hours here. I had an actual real emergency when I was in Vancouver, and I went anticipating a 12-hour wait, and it was 4. So I was pleasantly delighted, and everybody else was grumbling about how long the wait was. And I said, you should try it at our end of the country. So yeah, people aren't going to go, and they're going to put things off, and that's just going to make it more expensive in the long run, because people are going to show up in a lot worse position.
As we all know, it's impossible to find a family doctor. So what do? You go to emergency. And I get very annoyed at our premier's recent commercials on television telling us all the options Nova Scotians have for health care. Has he tried any of them? I doubt it.
Yes, it definitely has. It takes to book a doctor's appointment, it takes a good month out at least to get a doctor. And I have a family doctor for my whole life.
Yeah. So by the time you get your appointment, the minor thing could be gone.
Yeah, it could be gone or worse, So if it's not serious, I just kind of wait. And then if it gets more serious, that's when I book.
Yes. Partly because I no longer have a healthcare provider. So I'm one of those many people who no longer have anybody that I can talk to or ask about little things. Yeah, that's a big issue.
No. Anything that I figure needs to be checked out, I will absolutely go and get it checked out. I worked in healthcare for 30 years, and I know how important it is to not ignore anything. And even though it may take a lot longer to get to specialists or to get certain tests done, getting on the waiting list is better than not being on it at all.
Yes, I've been here for over 2 years now, and I haven't got a doctor. And I've got a few issues, and I just ignore it.
No, I wouldn't say that. I've never been a person who bothered the healthcare system unless I needed to, and if I feel I need to, I will certainly exercise my privilege to seek healthcare.
Like, I've had people with concussion type symptoms that I know that have ignored it because they don't want to go sit in the ER for 12 hours, so they have no other options.
Well, certainly, you can't get the help that you want. You can't get the help that you want from when you want it. It's not there. I know people who are on waiting lists. Even myself, I got to wait for them now till January before I get to see a doctor. So that means I'm from November to January without a doctor, basically. And how many more like me?
Oh, definitely. I'm a person where I kind of disregard a lot of health issues anyway. I'm like, oh, if I got a pain or something, it's fine, it'll figure itself out. But I mean, I had an ear infection a couple months ago, and I was waiting in the hospital for 9 hours just to get some pills and go home. So it just kind of solidified I don't need to go, I'll my body will figure it out.
Depends what you mean by minor. You're only going to delay it. Just get in line like everybody else. I don't think anything. If you figure you got an issue, you deal with it. Because as far as I'm concerned, it's only going to complicate things if you don't deal with it.
I'll say yes, but there's the odd time where I'll go if it's bugging me for a long time.
What about you?
For a merge specifically, I haven't had to deal with it much, but I don't think it would hinder me. I think as part of you would go if you need it that badly.
Yeah, absolutely. I spend a lot of time on telehealth. I have a 4-year-old son. Anytime they get sick, you get so scared. I always call them, and I'm just hoping that they tell me not to take him in, and though I don't have to sit there for 12 hours in a hospital.
Yeah, and that would make you disregard some issues?
Oh yeah. Anytime, just put it off and just hope for the best.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, just having to go through the whole hassle, having to change my whole entire day just because of this. Sometimes I'll just say, oh, I'll just take a Tylenol. I'll just take a Tylenol and stay home.
Yeah, I think so. I think it would. Because if I know that I'm going to be spending my entire day over something that will potentially go away, maybe it'll take a bit longer to go away. But yeah, I don't know. I don't want to spend my entire day in the ER.
Because I've just moved back, I haven't really noticed it, but I can tell you my experience of overseas. I get an appointment in a day. If I need surgery, I'll get it in 3 days. That's living in the Middle East or lived in China, Korea. Services outside of Canada, or at least in the countries I lived in, are 1,000 times better, from what I understand.
So here in Canada with the wait times, sometimes they could be 12 hours plus, depends on where you are. Would you disregard some minor health issues to avoid that?
No, not at my age. Maybe if I was younger, I would, but take care of yourself, right?
Yeah, unfortunately, and that's kind of how it's become right now. After the pandemic, a lot of people didn't get the care that they needed at that point, right? So they did neglect those minor issues. Myself, I take care of my health when I have something I do, and I'm lucky to have a family doctor. I have a family doctor that's 3 hours away, and I go to him and I call him, you know what I mean? And I can't let go of him. But yes, if I needed something, yeah, it's hard to get access for people too.
Thanks for watching this episode of Outburst on CPAC. If you have any comments about this show or any other show, you can find us on social media. You can also find us on our website at www.cpac.ca. I'm Glenn McGuinness, and on behalf of my colleagues at the Cable Public Affairs Channel, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.